I'm laughing before we start. I'm here with my friend Paul Mitchell, right, who I affectionately named Matresso, right, which is a really long story, and probably a story for another day. But I want to thank you very much for seeing me today, Paul. Paul is the owner and founder of the Human Enterprise, which is a leadership and...
Oh, it's a leadership and personal development business.
Personal development business. And Paul is one of the most genuine business people that I know. And my interaction with Paul happened 2.5 years ago in Tuscany, which, as I said, we'll cover at a later stage. But I found from an esoteric point of view and a good business acumen point of view, Paul has a wealth of knowledge, and our Sydney visit now is really based around change and transition. So I'm looking forward to our discussion. And so again, thanks, Paul. And what it might be good, just if we can do a quick 30-second spiel. Tell our audience a little bit about ourselves. We're in, I don't know how many countries are we in now, John? We're in a few. So we're pretty much. So
the world's your oyster, Biv.
Oh, the world's my oyster. Oh, lovely. So from that point of view, you ready? It's going to be one of those interviews, isn't it?
I hope so.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself, and so therefore then the audience can understand. And what I do suggest is that people get onto his website, and John will put the web address and everything up, which I think you've already done, haven't you, John? Yeah. On a previous video, yeah. So from that perspective, let's go.
So very quickly, started the business in '87. If you remember, you're older than '87, aren't you? When you were born. So that was a recessionary time for and I noticed I was at Price Waterhouse at the time, and businesses were what I call the killing fields of the spirit. We're all talking about they were downsizing, but they called it right-sizing to try to justify it. And to me, it was just horrific. So I started a business called the Human Enterprise with one major purpose in mind, that you can build great enterprises and make them truly human. And we have not altered our stand on that since 1987.
Great, fantastic. Well, what a great way to work.
Yeah.
Great way to work. I find in general business, when they talk about downsizing, not to get off track, but when they talk about downsizing, they tend to cut people straight away instead of looking at what we can do to develop them more. So that's where you're coming from. Yeah,
but basically, I mean, we have a saying, organisations don't perform, people behave. So if you want to change organisational performance, you have to change people's behaviour. You can't change people's behaviour if they're not in the business. And it's just so easy to cut people. I mean, that's your major overhead. Yep. But eventually what happens, and it happens virtually every time, business gets going again, we put more people back on. But the loss in terms of the human loss and the loss in terms of the corporate knowledge is just huge. Yeah. So there is always a better way. Yeah.
Yeah, good, okay. One of the things that John and I have really concentrated on and are not necessarily worried about, but we're concerned that we need to offer more intellect and more dialogue out in our YouTube videos with change and transition. So, and because I know that you have been through quite a metamorphosis, right, over many years now. So from that perspective, I thought that we could give people some building blocks on change and then talk about transition. And even from the point of view, now I'm 56 now, and I'm probably going...
Spring chicken.
I'm a spring chicken. I'm going through probably my fourth reincarnation now. Yeah. As far as a business person goes. Yeah. And even like transition is occurring daily, change. And you made a comment before. What was the comment you made on change? How it's occurring daily?
Well, it used to be when I was a boy, you'd do a restructure, say, an organisation every 2 or 3 years. They happen every week now. Get used to it. That's the way it is. That's just business as usual. Yeah. Transition is what leaders do. They manage change.
Right. So if I said to you, if you were talking to a newbie, so to speak, into the corporate world and just got his first managerial gig, what building blocks would he give him to cope with change? What would you say to him?
Well, the first thing I'd say is look for it. Look to make it happen. Don't wait and react to it. I mean, you can react to change, but you can proactively bring change about. So what we always do is have a look at what are the problems and the opportunities in this business right now, and how do I capitalise on the opportunities and overcome the problems, and keep doing that constantly. It's a constant. That is what your role is. That is what the role of a great leader, a great manager is.
Problem solving
and capitalising on opportunities. Yeah. And the quicker you do that, we call it a loop, the quicker you do that, the better you'll be. In venture capital these days, what are they looking at? They're looking at Not used to be how good the strategy was. Now it's okay, how good are these guys identifying the problems? How good are they at actually looking at the opportunities and capitalising on them?
Yeah, okay. So then on an overall basis, one of the things that I've found especially because I'm so into real estate, in the best place in Australia, being Melbourne, of course.
Yeah, well, we need to talk about that because that's where there's a little bit of dysfunction here, but that's the advanced session.
We can come to an understanding on that, Scott. All right? We don't have to agree.
Yeah, a shared understanding rather than a shared agreement. Very good differentiation.
Thanks very much. I've learned from the master. So one of the things that I've found is that we've got a real lack of education.
Right.
Now, and what I find is I've had a couple of thought processes in relation to the economy and in relation to how governments are run, and I think that if we educate the people, the economy will be better.
Yeah.
Right. And I think if we reorganise our tax system, which is not a real discussion for today, but what I find is that all these new real estate people that come in, and I know you know a lot of real estate people, a lot of them can't adapt to any different circumstances due to the fact that they're not educated very well. Because they can come in and get their real estate licence really quick.
Yeah.
So therefore, the education process it's more expensive, but it's simplified.
Yes.
So as it's become more costly, it's actually easier to get.
Yeah.
So therefore, and I'm finding that the quality of people is starting to diminish, for the want of a better term. So therefore, guys like you and I, to a certain extent, have got a big role to play.
Huge role.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at where we came into being through a shared mentor. My dad was a printer. He was what they call a journeyman, a tradesman.
Right.
Knowledge isn't the problem. There's a lot of knowledge out there. It's how you make that knowledge come to action.
Right.
What's missing is great mentors. We can send all these kids doing all these degrees and master's degrees and PhDs and whatever. Fantastic. My grandfather used to say, of heavenly value but of no earthly good. So
good.
What turns that knowledge into something you can use is a mentor. So we have to be very, very careful that we're not just giving people knowledge. We are actually helping them apply that knowledge to the trade or the profession that they're going after. And that, I think, is the thing that's missing.
Right, okay. And then in addition to that, then what do you think about this? I've found that what's lacking a lot is the understanding of human behaviour. And that's where you and I have got a synergy.
Yeah.
And our friendship has grown very quickly, and we've stayed in touch, which has been, it's unusual for someone to met so quick at our age. But the reality, aside from the healthy respect we have for each other, one of the things I find great about you is your understanding of human behaviour, why people do shitty things and why people do good things.
Yeah.
Right? So, and that all comes back to change and transition.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, I want to quickly digress and say the advent of the mobile phone and the technology part of that is taking a lot of people off track now. So in your deliberations with corporates, etc., do you educate them about the usage of phones and IT and all that? Do you go into that sort of spiel?
Not a lot, apart from the fact that one of our key things is when you're with your people, be present. Be present. Like right now, we're making eye contact. We're present. We're here. We're in the moment. We're not. Oh, just a second, Mitch. Good interview, but I'll get back to you. And the pull of that is actually addictive. I mean, technology is addictive.
Yeah.
So you have to just get into the habit of when you're with someone, be fully present with them. So we don't talk about so much the use of technology, but we do talk about what you should be doing when you're with people.
All right, okay. So therefore, because what I've done is I've related a lot of my education on change and transition with human behaviour. Right? Which is pretty much where your expertise is.
Yeah.
I'm going to get back to the mobile phone thing just for a sec.
Yeah.
So bear with me on that.
Sure.
When we have, I saw a video yesterday, right, which I spoke about this morning, where it's a real estate conference, and the majority of the people weren't listening to the speaker; they were on their phones.
Yeah.
Right, and that also led me to another video that I saw of some tourists going through Venice in a gondola, not looking at the view, but all on their mobile phones.
Yeah.
So that type of stuff completely concerns me.
Yes.
I've even had it where people are paying me a fair amount of money to educate their staff, and their staff walk into the meetings with their mobile phones. Yeah. Not even when they're being introduced to me, they just pop their head up while they're still on the phone. Yeah. Now, I'm seeing that prevalent.
No.
I'm seeing that prevalent.
Yeah.
So therefore, what do we run a dictatorship when we run businesses? Should we get a bit more authoritarian and say, guys, these are the rules if you want to be employed here?
Well, I mean, a couple of things. The Venice one's an example. Like we have a scene, you get the scenery, but you miss the experience. So, you can go back. How was Venice?
Beautiful comment.
How was Venice? Oh, let me show you Venice. But you weren't there at the time. I think the Dalai Lama said, wherever you are, be there. So that's the whole thing. We're missing out on the experience. The second thing about technology, I find that interesting. If I do key shops or keynotes, as they're often called, is that often a lot of people are sending Instagrams, they're taking notes on it and stuff. That is the way of the world. But at the same point, although they're taking notes and they're using the technology appropriately, I still think they're missing out on the connection. Do we become dictatorial? I don't know. It depends. I think if you try to force that, you'll just get more resistance to it.
Okay, I'm not. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. I've always had a thought that dictatorships do work to an extent, and because my nunna used to say, my grandfather used to say, you can only be one driver of the bus.
Yeah.
I used to adhere to that because what happens is that at some point, how much authority do you give the subordinates?
Sure. Let's go back to, you talked about change, and we talked about that change loop. One of the researchers that we use is a guy called Dr. Aitak Adizis. And he talks about, it's an interesting point, there's decision making and then there's implementation. With decision making, make it a democracy. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? But when it comes to implementation, it's a dictatorship.
Yeah, I like it.
And that's
now
you
got my attention.
And what the word is that he uses is make it a democracy, which is a combination of democracy on the decision making, but dictatorship on the implementation. And that is where a lot of leaders fall down.
That's a great point.
A lot of leaders fall down. They make it, we're going to do this, so they make a dictatorship on the decision making, but when it comes to implementation, they just let people do their own thing, and they make a democracy. Got it all totally wrong.
Yeah. I so agree with that. That is a great concept. That's something that I think we might even just investigate that now a bit more.
Sure.
So say, for instance, in the real estate field, we go through scripts and dialogues and all the general stuff, and then the guys are just left to go out in the field.
Yeah,
like
well, yes. Let's agree on the scripts and dialogues, but when we get it's too expensive, why would I use you? I don't want to go auction. We don't go, let me make something up there. No. We've agreed on what we're going to do, and you need to be accountable for it.
Yeah.
But the difference is I will go along with it, and I'm prepared to be held to account because I had some input into the decision making.
So if in the world, in the corporate world now that you're working in, what do you see as the three biggest issues in relation to companies' growth?
Right.
The inhibitors.
Yeah. Well, the inhibitors are also the possibilities too. So the big one by a country mile is people. People. Right. People talk about engagement, they talk about enablement, whatever. But that's the number one issue. And from that, there's a lot of issues. So if you look at that, the big issue is how do you absolutely maximise people's contribution to the business and simultaneously maximise the joy and the meaning and the satisfaction they get.
Beautiful.
And if you can cross that over, you're on fire. So that I'd say was the number one issue. The number two issue is, do we grow or not grow? And you'll see that
populate or perish.
Populate or perish. Do we? And you'll see a group of dealing with some senior leaders at the moment. Half the business says, no, let's go for it. Let's borrow some more money. Let's get some more capex going. And the other group, no, let's just settle down again. We don't know what the economy's going. So actually, that lack of decision making is sometimes a bit of a problem as well.
Right. Okay.
And the third one I can't think about at the moment.
Okay. No, we'll get to the third one. All right. So then, as far as getting back to the first one goes. I suppose to a certain extent, we want to enhance the quality of their experience, which makes them better employees.
Exactly.
But we also need to make them accountable.
Yes.
So I find that the accountability scenario today is it's difficult to implement.
Yes.
Because I find that there's a lot of non-accountability.
Yes.
It wasn't my fault.
Yeah.
It wasn't my fault that it didn't work, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And what I've found with that is a lot of it is the prep.
Yeah.
I find a lot of preparation in the general, and I'm talking about the real estate industry, but in general business, because I'm now dealing, in the finance world, I'm dealing with some of the major four banks, and I'm finding the competency level of the guys that I'm dealing with that have been out of uni for 4 or 5 years, there's no business acumen.
No.
So therefore, I don't blame them. I blame the hierarchy because they're not educated very well, or maybe that I'm dealing with the wrong people and I should be dealing with the hierarchy.
Well, maybe, but I think you can it gets back to this knowledge thing, and you get all the competency in the world. I used to have a saying, you want to hire someone, hire a swimmer. What do I mean by that? A swimmer who's a professional swimmer has to get up at 3:30, 4 o'clock every morning, up and down, up and down, up and down. And what they develop is they develop a self-discipline. They know what it means to be accountable. Yeah. So the most important thing is, if you want accountability, hire people who know what it means to be personally accountable. If not, you'll be getting what we call compliance. Have you done this? Have you done that? Rather than commitment. If you hire people who are already committed, irrespective, swimming, whatever it might be, it just makes such a difference. Such a difference.
So compliance versus commitment. Okay,
compliance versus commitment. You know, you as a leader, you want people who are committed, and you can help. You can create an environment that gives you more of that commitment. Because if not, compliance just sucks the hell out of you.
It's just a monitoring of it.
Exactly.
And the reality of that is that if you're doing that, and the marketplace is changing rapidly, you can't keep up.
No.
There's no way you can do it. I don't care how good a business leader you are, and I think I'm okay, but I'd struggle with that.
Yeah.
Purely because I'm changing direction all the time, and also my thought process.
Yeah.
And one of the things I find about good leaders is a lot of them have got tunnel vision, where they've got a goal in set, and like I showed you that diagram before, you know, we all get off track. It's how quickly we get back on track is the go. So therefore, that's why commitment is great with that, because I think what you're saying is committed people generally get back on track quicker.
They get back on track quicker because they know what they want to do. If you've ever been on one of those school reunions, you know, and you go back and, Paul, he got a PhD and Phil got that. And what about John? John left in year 10. How come he's a multi-millionaire? Because he makes curtain rings for showers. That's all he does. And the point being is he just committed. He took one path and got real good at that path.
Yes.
And I think you'll find that in anything. If you get anyone who's good at anything. So there's something to be done with tunnel vision. Not to actually not take some of the external world into account, but to be that focused, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. All right, and one of the things that I've learned, and I'd be interested in your opinion on this, I've been advising people that I'm consulting with, when their businesses have changed a bit in this marketplace. I'm predominantly talking about, there's one non-real estate business, but generally they're real estate businesses. I've said to them, what you need to concentrate on is the things that you're good at.
Sure.
Right? And then bring some IP in with the things that you're not. And sometimes that's where I come in, or somebody else, like a mentor, right, or a business coach. So I've really worked on them growing the business that's already big in their business.
Yes.
So growing the bigger part of their business bigger.
Yeah.
Do you sort of testify to that?
Well, yeah, we have a little thing. We use mnemonics a lot, and everyone says, give yourself a pep talk. We say, no, give yourself a BEP talk, BEP. And what you need to do is the intersection of what are you best at, which is what you're good at, what are you passionate about, that's the P, and economically, what's going to be best for you. And that's the sweet spot. So not just what you're good at, because you can be good at basket weaving, but there may not be much money in it. You can go after something that's really going to give you a lot of dollars, but there's no fire, there's no passion. Or you can do something that you're actually passionate about, but you're not be that good at it. So where are you? Where are you passionate about something? Where is it economically going to give you the biggest return? And where are you really, really good at it?
One of the things, and I think I told you this when I met you overseas, but it's funny because I've always had a respect for real estate,
right?
But I never really loved it. Right. Like when I was working.
Why didn't you love it?
Because I found that it changed a lot of people's behaviour.
Right.
Right. So I got cynical about behaviour. And
what sort of changes?
Well, people got greedy and selfish, and other real estate agents would try and take you by. All those things went, and I'm talking very light, fluffy stuff.
Sure.
And you've always got to be on guard. Right. Because you're always aware of your opposition. You're aware of the people in your office, etc. But I didn't dislike it, but I didn't love it anywhere near as much as I thought I would. And what happened is that people have, and as you have heard, people give me a lot of kudos for being in the past a great real estate agent. That's all lovely. But it was something that I loved, but I wasn't in love with, like I thought I would be. And people thought that I was absolutely in love with the job. I wasn't. And it wasn't a means for an end, but I liked the environment that I created. That's why I grew my business, because I wanted people around me that I'd loved and liked working with. So the people in the business that I created, actually probably a better way to say it is I changed my environment by buying my first real estate business, because I wasn't happy with the environment in my first real estate job.
Well, there you created the environment. I mean, the thing about that too is you can't keep going day in, day out without you suffering unless you're passionate about something. I mean, there's just no way you can do it. I get that. And eventually you'll burn out and people will smell it. And we talk about a flat battery can't charge another battery.
That's right.
And even if you're running a real estate agent, you're still a leader.
Yeah.
You know, sure, you're a technician and you're a manager, but you're still a leader.
Yeah.
And so you got to love it, and you got to love people.
Yeah. So because what I found then is that if the opposition were always trying, as our business grew and we were doing well and became the top agent, etc. People were always targeting us, and that became hard work. But because I'd go to work and get my spiritual vow, for the want of a better term, would be fulfilled by the environment and the people in it.
Yes.
That kept me in the business.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was so. I looked for another avenue other than the business itself to keep me fulfilled. Does that?
Yeah. The environment could be. I mean, you could have got the same thing at McDonald's too.
Yeah, that's right.
The whole thing is what Ray Kroc said. I see as much beauty in a rose as I do in a Big Mac. But it's the actual. You can create an environment, which is the great thing about entrepreneurs. The work may be okay, but it's the environment that you love. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So then what I find, so say for instance, I found when I left working at my first real estate company, and then I bought my business. A lot of people, even Dr. Fred's asked me a lot. He goes, we discussed the transition of that, and how I mentally went from a top salesperson and lister to become a principal.
Yes.
That happened in weeks.
Huge transition. Yeah.
Huge, right? Yeah. So therefore, I had the responsibility of staff, a whole range of things, and then my business grew that quickly that I had trouble managing the upward movement.
Yes.
Right. So what I did was I thought I need some building blocks for transition.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And how I got. So I thought what I did is I brought in people where I had no IP. So I did what I said to you before. I worked on the things I was really, really good at. Right. And the things that I wasn't necessarily good at is that I brought that in. Now that created quite a bit of weight for me financially.
Yeah.
Where I struggled for 6 to 9 months.
Yeah.
But then what happened is all of a sudden I could start to see the light, because it took me about 6 months to get a listing run happening, right? So the first rule that I learnt in transition and change was fill the IP gaps that I have with people that I you sort of...
Absolutely.
Right, okay.
There's two things on that. One, you're recognising that you've got strength in some areas and allowable weaknesses in others.
Yeah.
But the other thing about this is when you bring those people in that compensate for where you're not strong, it makes them feel significant.
Yes.
So it's a beautiful leadership thing right from the start.
Because they were important to me. And
exactly.
And I said to them, you're going to fill a gap that I just don't have the IP with.
And in doing that, by the way, you're showing your vulnerability. And it's the vulnerability that builds the rapport, makes you be more human, makes people want to be actually led by you. You should get a book about that.
Good. Okay. Yeah. You're still the funniest bugger I know. So then on that score, I did the other day. I did 15 points in relation to leadership, and one of them was being vulnerable and admitting your mistakes.
Yeah.
So you find that you reckon that's really important.
Well, one of the programs that we do in the Human Enterprise is called "Why Should Anyone Be Led by You? What It Takes to Be an Authentic Leader." And there's a number of things that it takes, and this is very solid research from London Business School, and one is to share your allowable weaknesses. Now, notice I said allowable weaknesses.
Yeah, I got you.
If you're like a real estate agent and you don't know shit from Shinola about real estate, that's actually not an allowable weakness. Yeah. But it might be, I don't know this territory well, I was in commercial and now I've moved to residential or whatever. So, share it.
The accountancy side of the business.
Exactly, accountancy side of the business, the IT side of the business or whatever,
Yeah, okay, good. All right, so the vulnerability and admitting that's great. Great. So therefore, if we were to look for another building block in relation to helping people adapt to change,
sure.
Would you say? And one of the things that I find is I'm finding it hard to accept people to be accountable for what they do.
Right.
I'm finding that hard, and I'm finding the fact that if they can't accept their accountability for something not going right, I'm finding that we're adopting to moving forward or transition or change or whatever the terminology you want to use, finding it hard. So, because I'm finding that a lot of and I'm not picking on them, but a lot of the millennials are having an accountability problem.
Well, they don't have an accountability problem, first of all. It's the manager that has the accountability problem.
All right,
so let's put it where it needs
all
to.
Right, fine.
So what you're looking at is if people won't be accountable, then they're not changing their behaviour. So what do we know about behavioural change? Pretty simple. Either you stay where you are because either the joy of actually changing is less than the joy of remaining the same. Or alternatively, the pain of changing is more than the pain of staying. So what do? You create more pain staying the way you are, or you create more joy in terms of the change, and that's up to the manager and the team member to work through.
Well, that runs back to a word called culture.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
And that's what you basically started off saying today. How we change that mindset.
Yeah.
In relation to, making sure that we know a lot about people's behaviour.
Yeah.
And that's where one of the things in all the discussions you and I have had socially over a meal, etc.
Yeah.
And we talk about human behaviour, why people do certain things,
Yeah.
or why do good people do bad things to themselves consistently?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that, it's perplexing.
It is perplexing. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So therefore, because some people don't know, this is what I think, they don't know how to derive enjoyment.
Yeah, the joy, suck the juice out of it.
Yeah, they don't know how to do that. And so, John said to me this morning, when I go to the gym, he's invigorated and his endorphins and all that are running. Well, a lot of people will never ever go to the gym because they really don't testify to that type of.
Well, they don't have enough. Like I haven't been a big. I was saying to John before, I haven't done a lot of weights or gym work or whatever. And now what I'm doing is I'm actually for the first time listening to my podcast at the gym. So I'm thinking, what podcast is on today? So what I've done, and this is how you change behaviour, you have to have a trigger that actually gets rid of the old behaviour and puts a new one in place. And that's the key.
I call them trigger points.
Yeah, trigger points. We call it, you've got to go to the ton. What's the trigger? What's the old behaviour? What's the new behaviour? TON. And if you keep doing that, okay, for example, a leader might be, the trigger point was their team members say something, and they've always got to be the smartest person in the room. So team members say something, that's the trigger. From now on, the old behaviour was cutting them off. The new behaviour, ask a question. Ask a question. Ask a question. Ask a better question. Exactly, yeah. The quality of the question determines the quality of the answer. So what I'm saying is you can change behaviour, but you have to work at it. And you and I know through Dr. Fred, it's very much about rituals. Daily rituals. And
rituals create balance, and that's routine.
Yeah,
routine creates balance. There's no doubt about that type of routine behaviour.
Yeah.
And what I find is that, I'll ask you this question. Yeah. When you're in an environment and you've got, 10, 20, 30 staff, you've got to create routine and balance. Yeah. So therefore, what I'm finding is when I was running when my real estate office was really running at an extremely high level, I found I was doing 70% staff guidance and motivation and 30% real estate. Right. But that's when I was making more money and more profit. Yeah. Right? So therefore, and if I felt someone was off, because it was one of my concentrations on a daily basis to make sure the people were right and that, things were going along fairly okay, I found myself, at some point I became like a psychologist for some of them. Of course. Right? Yeah. But that's how the business evolved. Yeah. The business evolved on the fact that I wanted to learn more about human behaviour. Because what might motivate you might not motivate the next guy, but sometimes that guy can learn what motivates him and get enticed by that. Yeah. So therefore, and I found that if people started sharing in their joys together, it was easy for Johnny to understand Paul's.
So you put a system in place where you do that. We talk about if you're just focusing on individual, but the actual environment's not good. We talk about polishing apples in a toxic swamp. It's, what you've got to do is you've got to have a fertile field. So what you were doing is culture 4 things. Systems, put a system in place that every morning we share joys, we share tens, whatever they might be. Symbols, systems, symbols, symbolically what do we do? Do we have awards? Do we have nights? Whatever. A great symbol, for example, is the biscuits. I see so many companies, we're going to cut costs and we're going to get rid of the biscuits. I get rid of the biscuits, and the biscuits were a symbol of getting together over a morning tea or morning coffee, and all of a sudden for the next whole year, what are we talking about? Clients, customer satisfaction, we're talking about how the bastards got rid of the biscuits. I mean, so symbols, systems, stories. Stories are a great way. What are the stories? Examples. What are the stories that you tell? And style, the empowering style. So what I'm suggesting is, the more and more the senior you become, your job becomes the carrier of the beacon of culture, not just the technician. And that's what you were doing, and why you moved so quickly. The other thing, if I could be so rude, I think you made that transition, because one thing I think you're good at, other leaders are good at, is changing your identity really quickly. If you change your identity from, I was a real estate person, now I'm a real estate manager or managing people, just that identity shift will almost automatically change your behaviour.
Didn't think about that.
Very important.
Yeah.
You changed your identity. And right now, this thing's about transition, is how quickly can you change your transition. Some people, for example, are, young, having a great time. All of a sudden, fathers particularly, they have a child. They still won't give up that, hey, I'm young and having a great time. You're a father now. You've got a new identity, you've got to take it on. And the problem comes when we don't shift to that new identity. You get people who are getting very aged, they still want to act like they're young. It's a new part of your life. You've got to transition.
And that's a real paradigm shift. That shift there. And now that I'm thinking about it while you're talking to me, because I've had an aha while you said that.
Right.
I'm thinking now, I did do that because I got out of the car one day and I was a proprietor.
Exactly.
I'm
an owner.
It was as simple as that.
Yeah.
And I didn't I metamorphosized into that in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And that you've just said that. You know what? Out of all the years of all the tuition and training I've done for people, I've never even thought about that. And
change your identity.
That's exactly what I did real quick. Yeah. So on that score then, so we've now, in this video, we're going to wrap up the first
Can I also say a quick way of changing identity? When you go on the plane, there's a very different big thing when you turn left or you turn right. When you turn right, you see yourself as, and you know, whether you can afford it or whatever, you see yourself as economy or premium economy and you'll act that way. When you turn left, changes your identity and you act a different way.
Well, John and I were talking about that yesterday in detail, and we might just finish up on this and get ready for the next video. But I said to John, it's very, very important that you have ownership of who you are and that you feel confident. Now, John spoke about somebody yesterday, and this is talking about the change of mentality, talking about people going in, and there was a guy that he admired looking at Rolls Royces, I think he said, looking at Rolls Royces, and then wanting to envisage himself. He said, and envisaged himself buying one.
Yes.
I had the different attitude. I said I'd never walk in there unless I could afford to buy it.
Yes.
Right. So therefore, my strive was making sure I could afford to buy it. Someone else's strive is going in there and wanting it. So it doesn't matter what works, as long as it works.
As long as it works for you.
Yes. Yeah.
As long as you get the identity shift, and the identity shift brings on the new behaviours that are necessary.
What a brilliant way to end our first video, mate. That's fantastic. Thanks very much. We're going to have another video shortly. Thanks, John. Thanks, John, for
Thanks, John.
all your coordination in the background.